Hi everyone, welcome. Today we are joined by the lovely Ali. Thank you, Ali, for joining us today.
Oh no, thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Ali is a YouTuber and a full-time traveler, and she documents her travels and gives travel advice over YouTube and over her blog at Psycho Traveler. And today we'll be talking about all different aspects of travel, such as cheap travel, travel tips, working overseas, traveling constantly and living on the road, and many, many other topics. So, first up, Ali, could you give us a quick background about yourself and how you came to start this YouTube channel of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Birmingham in England, and it was always kind of my progression to go to university and study psychology, get my doctorate, blah, blah, blah. However, at university, I realized everyone had hobbies. Everyone was doing sport or they could knit, even something like that. And I had absolutely nothing. So I decided to just start a YouTube channel talking about my trips and how I travel cheap during the summers, not expecting anything from it. And eventually just grew so rapidly that I was like, I could get on along with this. I could do this more. So it just built from there. I never planned to be a travel writer, a blogger, or a YouTuber. My plan was always just to go to university, and then it just suddenly changed overnight almost.
Nice. And what was the biggest thing that happened that made you change from going to university and following that career or line of path to living on the road constantly and becoming a full-time travel blogger?
I think mainly it was curiosity. I kept having a little voice in the back of my head, which kept saying, "What if? What
Yeah.
if you just tried it? Even if you didn't like the whole full time dealie, then you can just come back and continue on the path you were working for." So I was just so curious, and I just listened to that voice in my head in the end because I knew I'd regret it if I didn't.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't easy, but by the end of my third year, I got so worked up and my mind was just set that I'd just go and try it. If I didn't like it, I wanted to come home, I could. There was nothing stopping me from doing that. So, but I definitely made the right decision.
That's awesome. When people talk to me about traveling and about long-term traveling or taking time off their work or their studies, like I always tell them, the that those work and those studies, they don't really go anywhere. Like it's still going to be there whenever you choose
Mm,
to, come back to it, if you choose to come back to it. And so you can easily, travel and see how you like it.
mm.
And you can travel for a couple of years and see how you like it and still come back and there's still going to be, work available and there's still going to be studies that you can go to.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, people should never have the fear of maybe falling behind the rat race of
yeah,
like, oh, I don't want to like take time off work because I'm not sure if I'll be able to get a job once I come back or something. But usually
yeah,
I've found that the experience you get when you're traveling around and the life sort of confidence that you build helps you get more work in the future just because you're more all-rounded and employers can see that and
exactly. Employers want that nowadays.
yeah.
Like I've always said, everyone's got a degree, and that's not taking away anyone who's worked hard for their degree because I did.
Mm.
And if that's what you want to do, then absolutely. But most people who come to my channel, they obviously have a reason in their head that they don't want to study and want to go traveling. But absolutely, everyone's now is looking for that a little bit more. They want to see you've gone out and got that life experience. You aren't just the same churned out student going straight from school to university, university to work, because you know very little. You know what the textbooks tell you, and there's a lot more to life and working in any area than that.
Yeah. And it's like it used to be, in my opinion, it used to be a lot more valuable to go to university because not many people did it. So if you
Mm,
had a degree, it was it was pretty special, and
yeah,
it was a lot more realistic to get a job straight away. But now it seems like everyone's gone to university, everyone's got a degree, and just the competition for that is so high. And plus
very.
the debt you get depending on the country that you're in. So I've seen a lot of friends go to that path and go to university and then they sort of feel very stuck afterwards because they've got all of this debt and they're like, well, I've spent, 4 or 8 years going to university so I could get a high paying job, and now I've got this debt that I've got to pay off. So they're sort of stuck and they can't choose to go traveling or choose to have time off or choose to chase a different area of study or degree because they need to work to pay
Yeah.
off the debt. So it's yeah, it can be quite trapping.
It is. It's really tough, definitely. Completely agree. And one piece of advice about student loans, I just ran away. So it might not be the greatest advice to give, but just run to Australia 10,000 miles away and they'll have to come and find you. That's how I'm dealing with life right now, just to be honest with you.
And so now that you're on the road traveling full time, what does a day in the life look like for you?
It probably looks a lot more glitzy and exciting on YouTube because on there I can only show snippets. It all depends. Like at the moment, I've had to settle a little bit. I'll still be traveling, but I've got a lot of work to catch up on since I've taken my online career full time now and can make a living from it. So, to be honest, as a travel YouTuber or blogger, it's a lot of just working, sitting at home, drinking coffee, typing, emailing, filming, editing, uploading, and then finding time to go out.
Yeah.
It's everyone sees this snapshot, and don't get me wrong, I feel my life is awesome and I get to do awesome things, but there's also a lot of the admin and paperwork and writing that people don't see in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And everyone has a misconception that travel writers just laze around drinking cocktails and getting paid extortionate amounts of money to do it. And my days are not like that, I can promise you. But they are pretty awesome, especially when I'm not settled down somewhere for a short period of time and I'm on the road constantly. That's probably when you'll see less videos from me and less activity on my social media because I'm just trying to see everything. Like recently I was in Thailand for 9 days and I kept saying to my partner, I need to sit down, I need to write. And he kind of pulled me back and he was like, no, we're going to go to the markets, then we're going to go to the beach, and then we're going to do this because you only have 9 days here. And if you sit at home working the whole time, you're not going to have anything to write about. And I was like, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But every day I struggle finding the balance between going off, doing awesome things, seeing new places, and sitting down actually earning my income. So It's a tough balance. But my days are pretty good.
For sure, yeah, I can definitely relate. There's as a YouTuber myself, just the amount of editing that goes into videos, just so many hours. It's
Yeah.
for like such a short video, yeah, it's pretty amazing. But I just want to say that like when you build a lifestyle that you want to live, like it always takes work, no matter what anyone tells you. So if you're a doctor or doing a day job or like something in your home country, it takes a lot of work. And if you're a travel blogger or if you're doing online business, it still takes a lot of work. And there's still that balance between work and play type thing. So you have to figure out, when you want to work and how many hours, and especially on the road, you have to try and fit it in because you're constantly moving around. And so, you're doing editing on buses and you're doing, this here and you're trying to find cafes with good internet to upload
Yeah.
videos and it's it's got all that as well.
That's the biggest nightmare of my
Oh,
life,
in,
Wi-Fi.
it's killer, it's killer. But yeah, so like it does take work, but if someone wants to go out and live this lifestyle of either working from their computers and living in different countries for like, a couple of months at a time or, a year at a time and then moving to another country, or if they want to be constantly, going from week to week to different places, you can do that. You just have to realize that it's still like this is your life working now. So lots of people have like when you're traveling, everything's a holiday. So there's no working done whatsoever. You're just there to have pure fun the whole time. But when you're constantly traveling, every day is like that, and everyone's holidaying around you. So you have to be very determined to sit down and get the work done.
Oh yeah, it's not easy when someone passes you over a glass of wine or a cold beer and says, "Come and join us, Ali." You're like, I really want to. But like you said, it's determination, it's having the dream and having that focus and discipline to say no to that cold beer and going to sit on a balcony for a few hours in the evening and actually sitting in your room doing work.
Mm.
It's tough though.
It can be challenging, very much
Yeah.
so. When I talk to a lot of people about travel and long-term travel, money is usually the first thing that comes to them. So they're like, how can you afford to travel? How can, and especially long term without, just taking like a 2 week, a year trip, that you've saved up for. How can you afford to be on the road long term? How have you found travel expenses has varied from what you expected travel expenses to be like?
Well, when I first had my first solo trip, which was in Greece when I was 19, I kind of expected it to be stupidly expensive. That was my big fear, that I'd run out of money, and I knew accommodation was expensive. But back then, I didn't know anything about travel. I didn't know anything about budget travel. I had no idea what I was doing for the first couple of years. Not a clue. And then over places like Europe and Australia, they are expensive. I'm not going to lie, travel can be really expensive. But over time, you kind of figure out ways to reduce your costs in every aspect, like accommodation. You can go from thinking you have to pay $25 a night to couch surfing for absolutely free.
Yeah.
But when you first start out, if you don't follow bloggers or anything, you just don't know those things are out there. So with experience now, I can travel at a fraction of what other people would be traveling the same way for. But I think that comes from experience. And some cities and countries are very expensive outright. They're just like, we had 24 hours in Sweden as a layover. And we spent a silly amount of money and we barely did anything.
Yeah.
And then you get places like Thailand and Indonesia, which are ridiculously cheap. So some countries like Australia, etc., Hong Kong, things like that, you're just going to have to be prepared that it's going to be a bit more expensive. But there are always ways of cutting it back. Always.
I definitely agree. I had a trip recently where I had a stopover for about a week in Copenhagen. That I was visiting a friend, which was so expensive. And
Yeah.
like, I always got a little bit confused about the exchange rate. And so I'd go in, I'd get a coffee, and I'm like, a coffee can't be that much. And then like I'd calculate it out and be like, $8 Australian or something. And I'm like, oh my God, why? It was crazy. And then like I flew from there to Koh Samui in Thailand, and the difference, I was just gobsmacked about
Yeah.
the difference of what how long you could go for in Thailand. It's
Oh
crazy.
gosh, yes. However, I think a lot of people think that just because the place is expensive, that they'll never be able to afford it. So I want to just clarify, when I say it's expensive, like Australia is an expensive country, it's not impossible to travel around. And
Hmm.
thousands of backpackers are doing it right now on a budget. So it's not high-end luxury expensive. It's just slightly higher than what you'd pay in other parts of the world. But I think those kind of places scare travelers away, especially budget travelers. Like
Yeah,
I get worried about going to places like Japan and Hong Kong because I know they are very expensive.
yeah.
But I think you've just got to go and really hunt out, like you said about coffee. The longer you're in a place and you start wandering around and you get to know the exchange rate, you'll find little places that will do cheaper coffees. But I think as soon as you arrive in an expensive country, you just got to be prepared that a lot of your budget is just going to be blown through trial and error.
For sure, for sure. Experience is definitely the key to learning how to travel,
Yeah,
and learning how to budget travel long term.
definitely.
And the great thing about this day and age is that there's so many resources available to you, and especially that things like your channel and other travel bloggers and budget travel bloggers are just more and more out there. So the resources are becoming more and more readily available for the
Yeah,
average person to do a quick search online and figure out their journey, and even when they're traveling on the road and they're like, oh, I'm in this town, I've got a couple of hours, what are some cheap things to do around here? They can quickly Google that, and it'll come up with mountains of stuff they can do for free or very cheap. The resources out there are amazing, because definitely in the past it was definitely just trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I started traveling, like I said, there was just barely anything, and I didn't know what to search for. It wasn't a big trendy thing to go online and look at bloggers or watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And now it's huge. I wish I'd have known what I knew now, because the budget I spent on my first ever trip, wow, I could have made that go miles now. If I'd have just known and I had somewhere to go, they could break down what costs were.
Mm.
Yeah, but there wasn't a lot of that when I started traveling.
Yeah, well, thanks to you and other people like you now, it's becoming available. So you're like making the way for future cheap travelers.
You're welcome.
Awesome. And so another question that I get from people is they don't have a travel partner, a travel companion to travel around with, and they don't know anyone in the destination they were thinking of going to. How have you found traveling alone, and is there anything that you should look out for? And is there any tips you would give to someone who is afraid of traveling alone?
Yeah, I was extremely nervous, and I think it's completely normal to be anxious about traveling alone, especially for the very first time. However, what I'd say is that you can't be scared of traveling alone if you've never traveled alone, because if you travel alone, you're suddenly not scared of it because you realize something to be scared of. So they're very irrational fears. There's nothing wrong with that. We all get them. But you just got to remember you've got nothing to challenge those fears and the anxiety because you've never done it. So you can't pull from any kind of similar experience of why you're so scared. And I found traveling alone was instantly, the anxiety just went the moment I arrived at my destination. And it was all just hyped up in my mind. I had lots of fears like I'd run out of money, and I did run out of money on my first ever trip. 3 days before I came home. Luckily, I was in an awesome hostel and they looked after me for a few days. But you realize when you get out there, it's not as big and scary as people think it is going to be at all. And I just say, if that is, you're on the pivotal moments, you've got no friends that want to go with you, then just do it. Just go. You just got to book something, because that's the best moment when you book something. It's scary and exciting, but you won't back out of it once it's booked. Even if you just book a night in a hostel, if you don't have the money for your flight yet, but you know the date you want to go. Book one night in a hostel and I guarantee you'll feel amazing and excited. And people, as soon as you book it, it's the psychology, you won't back out of it.
Yeah.
And once you go, you can thank people like Perlin and I for
Thank you.
knowing what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice. I actually did a video recently where I was saying like the power of setting a real deadline, like booking a plane ticket, because lots of people, they're like, oh, I'm going to travel. I'm definitely going to travel in the future. I'm just not quite ready yet. Haven't prepared enough, and that can drag on for months or years. But if you have something booked, then every day you know that there's one less day to prepare. So your priorities get sorted very quickly.
Yes, definitely.
When that happens. And I've also found that traveling alone for me has been some of my favorite travel, because you don't stay alone when you're traveling around, especially if you're staying in hostels or you're doing any group activities like walking tours or different activities in the city. You'll meet people all the time, and when you're traveling, everyone is out there to meet people and to have fun. So it's a lot easier than if you're just in your hometown in your own little bubble, and you might think it's hard to meet people that you have no connection to. But when you're on the road, like, it just always happens, and you're meeting new people and they're like, hey, how's it going? Come and join. Where you from? Where have you been? Tomorrow we're going to see some Mayan ruins, or we're going out to a pub tonight. Come with us. And you find yourself just easily swept off in an adventure. And yeah, so I found that's great, because you don't have to worry about not knowing anyone, just sitting by yourself in the places where you're going, because there's always someone
Absolutely. Hostels are where I found my lifelong friends.
Yeah.
That's where you make the majority of your friends, in hostels and going on day tours and things like that. And I actually find a lot of the time I can't get alone time in hostels. So everyone's so scared that they're going to be alone all the time, and actually it can be quite opposites, where you're constantly around so many people. And then once you've been on the road for quite a while, that does get a tad overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find alone time. So seriously, if you are scared you're not going to make friends, that you just don't. You'll be
Least of your
fine.
worries.
Yeah, it really is.
I found that it's also a great way to prepare future travel because, usually you meet people from other countries and they're always like, yeah, if you're ever in Sweden, come and look me up. Or if you're ever over here, over there. And so you can, if you're going over to that country, you can say, oh, sweet, I know this person here. I can, see if they can show me around, or they might even have like a spare bed or a spare place that I can stay. And you find yourself getting a lot of local, in-depth knowledge about the place that you're at, so you can really see what it's like to, live there as a local, which
Oh yeah.
you wouldn't find if you were just, following the tourist route. And it can save you a lot of money as well, because I've had times where I've stayed in like Paris for a week and Prague and stuff for a week for free, completely for free, and the amount of accommodation costs that I saved there
Yeah.
was great. And that was just from chance meeting people on a bus and getting their Facebook details, and then years later I look them up and say I'm passing through that town. They're like, oh, sweet Perlin, come and join. I want to show you around the town. It'd be great. So yeah, that's also a very good tip if you want to travel cheaper and if you want to meet lifelong friends as well.
Absolutely. I have many people that I've met through Europe in my earlier days of traveling who I randomly get to Australia. They pop up on Facebook. I haven't spoken to them in like 3 years. They were like, you're in Australia. Come and stay with me for the love of God. I'm like, all right. And it's crazy how it's that kind of community that you create where you don't have to talk to them every single week or every single month to keep up. The moment you're in their home country, the doors are open, and that's what's so beautiful about meeting people on the road. Their couch is open to you. It's kind of an unwritten rule with travelers. It's like, if you're ever in my city, let me know. And it's not an open, it's not one of those things people just say. It's genuinely true.
Yeah.
And that's just a beautiful thing about the community as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one tip with that, a very important thing is to get their Facebook details. So I've found that it's really important. Like, you can meet someone, you're like, oh, it's really good to see you, and then you can leave and you can never see them again. And there's a point there where you need to ask for their details. And I've found that Facebook is the best because phone numbers and stuff can change, but Facebook usually stays the same for an individual. So yeah, you can just have them as a friend, and then years later, you can contact them. But you need to make sure that you get their details before you say goodbye on, whatever adventure you're having.
Absolutely. It's nothing more than kicking yourself when you get back to your hostel and realize that John has already checked out. And you were like, oh no, John. John was awesome. I wanted to keep in touch with John. I did that a lot. So normally it was like one of the first questions I just pass over my phone. Facebook?
Yeah.
People are so free and easy to add each other on Facebook that it's not weird anymore to ask that. But yeah, I know what you mean. Many a chance is missed. Many a friend's lost by not getting their details.
If someone wanted to live this lifestyle that you're currently living, or something similar where they're working on the road, where would you advise them to start if they have no experience and they're like, yeah, I want to travel for a long amount of time, and I want to see if I can work on the road, either from my computer or from a job in that country, but I'm just not quite sure where to begin. Any
Okay,
tips?
well, yeah, you've got loads of options now. If you just want to go to a country and work, you've got Australia, New Zealand, and even Japan offer working holiday visas. So you can come and casually work. So things like that are great. If you're part of the EU, most countries let you in and work temporarily with an EU passport. So that's a blessing to be born in Europe, because you can just travel, live, work, and study in any other country very easily. if you didn't want to do something like that and you wanted to work remotely, then if you have a talent that you may not realize, like writing, are you a good proofreader? Proofreaders can get paid quite a bit of money through websites like freelancer.com. If you want to start a blog, like writing stories about your travels, then the biggest piece of advice I'll give you is just start traveling and just start writing. Don't worry about setting it up to be the greatest website ever made. Just start writing. Just write something, anything. It doesn't matter. You just need to get content out there. Same for YouTube. But on the other hand, just before you jump in and start writing, if you think that this is something down the line which you could do, that you want to, and this is why you want to do it, so you can go on the road and travel full time and work from your blog or whatever, please be aware that it takes years to get to a level where your blog covers your travel expenses completely. And it's really tough, and there is a misconception that all bloggers get everything paid for, because they don't. But just think about what's important at the time. Don't jump straight into making it a 9-to-5 career when it comes to travel, if that's what you want to do with travel writing, because you'll find you'll have absolutely nothing to write about, and you'll start hating travel before you've even got out there. So go and travel, go to Australia, do your working holiday visa, and just casually upload, casually write, casually make a YouTube video. And then if you're enjoying it and you're building an audience because they see the passion come through on your YouTube videos when you're very relaxed, then focus on making it full time. So save your money, perhaps go to a country where you can work and top up your funds for a while and play with it, experiment. But don't just keep, like you said in your video, don't just keep thinking about, oh, I should really write a blog. Just start writing one, or go onto Freelancer and start getting little jobs here and there online and build a portfolio. But everyone has a speciality or an interest, everyone. So if you wanted to write or create videos, there's nothing stopping you from doing it, but it's just getting that first one out. And there's no point just saying, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. You've just got to start doing it. It doesn't matter how bad the video is, how terribly written your first blog post is. I still write blog posts that are subpar, and I'll admit that. But you just got to start doing it, and it'll just roll from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my biggest advice. Just start doing it.
That's great advice, to step into it bit by bit, because if you try and say, yep, that's it, I'm going to be a travel blogger, I've quit everything else, I'm burning the bridges, I'm just going to do it and I'll figure it out. It's good that you have that energy and that enthusiasm, but you can very easily find yourself in trouble when running out of money and then have to, slink back home with your head down saying, oh, sorry, I didn't make it. But if you say, okay, this is what I want to do, and you research it and you look at different steps and you start making a blog or a YouTube channel and you start putting out content, and then you can improve on it because you can see what other people are doing and what you're doing. You can say, yeah, I want to move in this direction a bit more. I want to, increase my writing skills a bit more, and you can, you just build these skills, incrementally. And like you said, like quality content is going to be the key. So even if you're not as slick or don't have the right camera gear to make everything smooth and fast, you'll get that as you go. But if you have the passion, people will still read your material or watch your material. They don't mind if it's not looking all that pretty, if they're getting valuable content that they can use. But if you're just trying to put out stuff because you think you have to and you don't really have anything to talk about, people will just stop listening.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's all about content. I mean, I can't watch my first ever videos. I can't do it. But I kind of feel they're still quite popular from what I was saying. The editing is shot, the lighting's terrible. I was using a $50 selfie camera to film in my bedroom at university. So yeah, don't ever feel you have to wait till you get all this professional lighting gear and the perfect, like a beautiful DSLR camera to film on or anything like that. It was like, look at the biggest YouTubers out there and look at their early videos.
Yeah.
They are done in dark, dingy rooms, but they were really funny and cool anyway, because just what they were doing and saying. And they still got popular. And it's just learning. That's why I said, get out there and just start putting something out, but realize the whole slinking back home is very funny, but it's not for the people. But like I said, it takes years to ever get to a level. So don't think that you can go out with a couple of grand and you can start automatically earning a high income and that 2 grand will keep you going until you do. No, yeah. You've got to realize it takes years, but it's so doable. It's completely doable.
Yeah. Well, Ali, this has been a great interview, some great content. Thank you very much for spending the time to talk to us today.
No worries.
If people want to get in contact with you or watch some of your material, where can they go to find that information?
You can just type in Psycho Traveler into YouTube and it will come up with my channel, or you can go to psychotraveler.com, which is my blog and my website, and there is a contact form at the top right hand corner if you want to send me an email or just have a chat.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to get in contact with me, my YouTube channel is Perlin Earth, and most of my content is on there, and you'll be able to find links to everything else. And I'll put all of the links for me and Ali underneath this video. Thank you very much, Ali.
No, thank you for having me, Perlin. It was awesome.
Bye-bye.